He has acre. Let's go.
Welcome back to the Just Like You and Me podcast. We are doing another virtual podcast. We are blessed to have Father Nate from Boston on with us. Father, it is great to have you on.
Thanks for having me. Looking forward to this.
Yeah,
I've never been this excited in my life.
Yeah. Wow. Neither have we. It's really great. I know you know Ben from France.
I do. Yeah. From another world.
It's been almost 6 years because I think you came in 2018. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's right. Yeah.
It seems like a really, really long time.
Yeah, it was. It was a long time ago. Yeah.
So I'm excited to get into that, and then also just get into everything that you've kind of gone through. So our podcast, we like to talk about faith and formation stories. We like to see where people started and where they're going and kind of how God's led them. So if you don't mind talking a little bit about your formation as in high school, like were you always Catholic, or how did your faith kind of start?
Good question. Faith starts at baptism. This is the important thing. Faith starts at baptism. And I was baptized on December 8th, 1991 at St. Rita's in Dallas, Texas. So I'm originally from Texas, but moved around a fair bit. It was Texas, then San Antonio, then Erie, Pennsylvania, where I lived the longest, and then Rochester, New York, where I went to high school. And I'm one of four boys. I like to say I have every type of brother. I have an older brother, a twin brother, and a younger brother. Sort of my fun fact whenever anyone asks me for a fun fact, because I don't have any others. But grew up in a fairly devout household, but not really Catholic. So my mother's Catholic, my father's Protestant. My father was the one who taught us the faith, though. And we grew up sort of every night with my father, praying together, reading a chapter of the Old Testament, a psalm, and a chapter of the New Testament together. So we knew Scripture well. And that was sort of the formative experience of the faith. And when we moved from Texas to Pennsylvania, we had all been baptized Catholic, but when we moved to Pennsylvania, we moved to Catholic schools because my parents didn't like the public schools. And it was sort of that experience that sort of led me to grow to love the faith more. We started going to the parish connected to the school. I started in fourth grade becoming an altar boy. Loved that, sort of found that experience of serving at Mass to be quite beautiful and quite profound, and I took it quite seriously, more seriously than anyone else did, which I assume would have been annoying to everyone around me. And so that was in Pennsylvania. Started going to daily Mass in high school. We had a Spanish teacher who was a priest who would give us bonus points if we went to morning Mass, so I started going to Mass most mornings. And just grew to love it. Ended up working out because my last parish was mostly Spanish speaking, so I had to do that a fair bit. And then I moved to halfway through high school. We moved to Rochester, New York, went to a Jesuit high school. I started thinking about priesthood then, but sort of put it out of my mind. Thought I wanted to go to normal school, and ended up at Boston College. And I graduated from there in 2013. And at Boston College, it's not a perfect place, but I had a wonderful group of friends there who really encouraged growth in the faith. Discovered many things about the faith that I had no idea about before, like going to adoration, liturgy of the hours, and just sort of a fraternal community that was formative for me and encouraged men to think about the priesthood, thought about it more seriously then. Through a number of sort of roundabout ways, different relationships, things like that. After senior year, was sort of convinced by the middle of senior year that I should enter seminary. And just sort of an idea that I wanted to give my life for something beautiful, for something real, but really that it was what I thought God wanted me to do. Just a sense that priesthood was where I was being called, and not something that it was going to be against my will, but something that would make me happy and fulfilled. And initially, I entered the Dominicans, the province of St. Joseph, which was wonderful. I had my novitiate in Ohio and then a couple of years of formation in Washington, D.C. at the Dominican House of Studies, and I loved it. But for sort of a number of reasons, didn't feel like that was where I was meant to stay, and didn't apply for final vows. Ended up leaving, went and met Ben in France, taught at a sort of remarkable in many ways, in every sense of the term, unbelievable Catholic school in France, where Ben was a college student. So I taught high school and some college courses in France, and still thought I wanted to be a priest. Wanted to go back to Boston, where most of my family is originally from, or at least my mother's family is originally from Boston. And I had known the most people there and where I felt home. I've now lived in Boston longer than I've lived anywhere, and grew to love the church in Boston. Went back to seminary and ended up, I loved it. I loved seminary in Boston. It was great. Many good men, good formation. At the time, because I had done other studies, I started doing another degree at Boston College, and I'm doing another one now. I'm trying to finish my doctorate. And I'm doing a doctorate in historical theology. And I was ordained a priest in 2022, May 21st, 2022. It's on the bottom of my chalice. So every time I celebrate Mass, I'm reminded what day I was ordained. And I spent the first 2 years of priesthood in Brighton, Massachusetts, which is part of the city of Boston. I had a wonderful parish, St. Columkills, which is about half sort of Irish, half Spanish speaking. Just the most insane, remarkable place. Loved it. And then for the last 2 months, I was just transferred. Now I'm the undergraduate chaplain at Harvard University. And that has been great. So I'm assigned to the parish here in Cambridge. St. Paul's is the parochial vicar, but my main task is I'm the undergraduate chaplain for the students here at Harvard. That is my life. That's all I have. That's what I've got.
Beautiful summary of everything. I mean, it kind of perfectly sums up. I feel like you would have a great understanding of one thing that kind of really draws you towards your vocation, and maybe something even on a different level of just drawing you into more of your faith, is you understand the importance of finding a community, right? Especially as someone who's gone to so many different areas. You'll find that there are all these small bubbles that are just located everywhere. Like you said, Boston College is really not a fantastically, well-known Catholic, establishment, but you'll find these really, really great Catholic bubbles. If you just kind of look for them, they're there. Same thing in France. I think that this is something that maybe you and I both kind of found equally, was that, I like the way that you described it. It's just remarkable, which is really the only way that you can describe it. But there was a fantastic Catholic bubble that was out there. The one thing that we've been able to really do with, I think, this podcast so far is locate all these different Catholic bubbles that are out there, and just kind of, the word that I'm looking for is kind of like expose in a certain sense. Like, you're just shining a light on all these different Catholic bubbles that are everywhere. It's one thing that really, really gives you a deeper sense of your faith, is that you find all these other people that are just like you, that have that same sense of faith, no matter where you go.
Yes, and I mean that's the working of divine providence. God doesn't leave you on your own, but it also, it shows the sort of necessity of community for most of us to maintain the faith. That community serves many different purposes. One is that it encourages you to practice the faith, and the other would be that we don't learn the faith on our own. Like, with the exception of going to confession, everything we do in the faith is basically public. Like, we learn how to go to communion by watching other people receive communion. We learn how to pray by watching other people pray, or devotions, or how to behave at Mass, or all these sorts of things. Our faith is not just a private thing. Like, we learn it from other people. And seeing how that happens, seeing other people who have learned it pass it on to you is it's absolutely necessary. And I think it's vital, even in situations where there might not be external proof of Catholic life to have at least one or two other people there who can keep you honest, who can encourage you, and who can show, even if it's not the common mode of life, that it is the real truth and something that should be pursued, and that the way it's pursued is through grace, and grace is often mediated, always mediated through other people. And so that's what's beautiful about it.
Yeah, 100%. And I'm going to jump back a little bit to, you mentioned like, the date of your baptism, but your father, who kind of led the faith, wasn't Catholic. How did that, I'm surprised that he like allowed you guys to get baptized in the Catholic Church. Was that an argument between your parents, or was he just happy for you guys to get baptized?
I'm not really sure how that discussion worked out. I do marriage prep. I do a fair number. And there is a little part when you're marrying a non-Catholic that says you allow the children to be brought up in the Catholic faith. And I'm sure my father took that seriously. And baptism is real. Baptism is real no matter who's doing it. So yeah. I don't have any other answers than that.
No, that's perfect in itself, because it's a lot of people get married and one person may be Catholic, one may not. I know it's a discussion a lot of people have, like, do we raise them Catholic? Do we raise them in the Protestant faith, in the Christian faith? And so it was just something I was curious about. But I also have to ask, we also had another priest who went to Boston College, and he knew Dr.
Wow. Who is that? Who was on
Father
here?
Martin Connor. He is with the Legionaries of
Christ.
Legionaries of Christ.
Yeah, don't know.
Fantastic. Did you have any classes with Dr. Peter Kreeft?
I think I had 5 with him.
Wow.
Yeah. Just running through my mind just right now. I took a class on C.S. Lewis, class on like theology and literature. Took one on like Tolkien, which is basically the same. They were all the same class. All his classes are the same. I took one on world religions. Maybe 4, maybe 5. I can't remember. But yeah, they were great.
A decent amount, yeah. He basically cited him as being one of the main reasons he kind of reverted back to the Catholic faith. He fell out of his faith for a while, but he said that Peter Kreeft was basically one of the main reasons that kind of drew him back. So wasn't sure if that was something that kind of drew you towards the priesthood or anything like that when you were there.
No, not directly. I just enjoyed his classes and enjoyed his style. He's a hilarious lecturer.
He's so
and yeah, they were just enjoyable classes. I think I might have had one other class with him. Yeah, I can't remember, but they were all the same.
Yeah.
No matter what class you were taking, he was going to give you the same lecture about how everyone is an idiot, which is true. And how, only the truth has grace. This is a real thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. He was fun. I had the privilege of, he came to St. Sebastian's, the parish I'm a part of, and he gave a couple talks, and I got to go see one of them, and I was surprised how funny he was.
Yes,
it was.
Yeah.
He's a really funny guy.
The funniest thing he said, he called Mother Teresa not pleasant to look at, and the whole audience was just like, he just said that about Mother Teresa. But he ended up, he's met her a couple times, so he was able to kind of let that bit out. His sarcasm and how he views the world is just beautiful.
This is the thing. This is a thing in New England, right? We love sarcasm, and everyone else gets weirded out by it. But it's something I've learned to embrace. I mean, it's basically 90% of my comments are in some way sarcastic, but they're not meant to be. Ben can affirm this. They're not meant to be cutting in any way. They're just how we interact with people.
You're also incredibly straightforward people, I've noticed. I think I remember one of the first conversations you and I ever had. You probably won't remember this. Maybe you will. But I remember it because it actually formed me a lot as a person. When we used to just talk, initially, I would tell a story. And the way that I would tell a story was I would tell you about like every single little detail of every single little thing. And I think I remember you telling me at some point, you're like, Ben, you're like, your stories, like, they're just so long. Like, you don't need to tell me every single detail of like every single background of every single person. Because I'd say like, oh yeah, my brother, he went to UVA. He lived on this street. He was over here, and it's like, I really don't need to hear about that. I really don't care about that. And it was just like, oh wow, he's like, he really doesn't care about all the small details of my stories. It's like, okay, that I need to just tone it back, think about this stuff a little bit more.
Yeah. So Ben, you want to tell the people how we know each other?
Well, I mean, on a shallow level, it was just because we both went to a school in France.
I didn't go there.
No, that's true. You were not at the school. You were teaching there.
Yeah.
I was a student there.
Yes.
I think I was incredibly excited to meet you because I heard that there was another American that was coming, and we did have a couple Americans that were there. Some of them they weren't really interested in the same things that I was interested in, I'll say. But I remember when I heard that another American was coming, I was like, man, it's someone that I can just talk about football with now. And I was incredibly excited to do that. That's pretty much all I really remember about that time, though, to be honest. I know there's some other stories.
So Ben and I know each other because Ben was a student at the Siobhan Studium, which was a 2-year, 3-year bachelor's program.
2-year experiment that unfortunately didn't pan out as well as the people wanted it to.
That's all right. It was fun. It was. In the Vendée, so the northwest of France.
Mm-hmm.
And so the Studium was for people getting their bachelor's degree. And then they also had the high school, International Lycée. And there were maybe 45 students at the
I think
the high school.
Yeah. Yep.
And there were 5 of you in the Studium, 3 to 5, depending on what was happening when. Yep. And then so I was teaching, and then I ended up teaching you guys a couple things.
Yes.
And then so that's how Ben and I got to know each other. And then the year after, I was back in seminary. I was still I was Zoom teaching you a couple classes. Yeah. And then so that's how Ben and I know each other. That's how I'm on this podcast.
Yeah. We're not strangers doing virtual calls with each other, I guess. Yeah, because you're the theology professor when we came back during COVID. You were our theology professor all throughout COVID, which was an interesting experience. Doing theology classes. Were they? I think they were all pretty early in the morning too, weren't they?
I don't remember.
It's kind of like a whole period of.
I have no idea. Yeah. What do we do? So I taught you. So just if Ben says anything wrong about anything, it's my fault. Right?
I was going to make a comment about that. I was just going to say, I was like, all the different comments. I don't know if you've watched any of the podcasts, but if there's any sort of theological point that I've ever said that someone's heard and thought, man, that was completely wrong, it's not my fault. It's the man who's currently on the other side of this who taught me. So.
Yeah,
he's the guy who really informed me and edified me of all my theological beliefs and suppositions. Yeah,
exactly.
There was one thing that I was going to ask you, because we were talking about, you made a really good point about community, the way that we kind of receive grace in a certain sense through other people, right? Like people they mediate grace through us. And I was going to ask you, because we kind of touched on it, but we didn't really, about, through your formation, did you really find that grace mediated through a lot of different priests that you may have encountered over the years? Was there any sort of big influence or inspiration of someone that you had that just kind of man, this guy exudes so much joy and I really want to partake of that joy? Or was it much more of an interior experience towards your vocation?
No, there were a number of influential priests in my life. For me in college, one sort of phenomenal priest is Father Reminisce, who's a Dominican. He's now at Ave Maria. Brilliant man, holy man, brilliant theologian. I used to meet with him a couple times a month to ask just sort of questions, and he would patiently deal with my stupidity and solve my problems. So that was it. And then in seminary, a bunch of different priests. My formation advisor at St. John's Seminary, so I went to St. John's in Boston. My formation advisor, Father Ryan Connors, who's a priest of the Diocese of Providence. He's now the rector of Our Lady of Providence Seminary. He was great, phenomenal. Just sort of these, also just examples of what a priest should be. And those examples of holy priests, happy priests, intelligent, thoughtful, gentlemanly priests were examples that I wanted to imitate and sources of much grace for me.
Yeah, it's formation. Priests have such a great they can do a lot for someone in formation. So my brother's actually just entered the seminary last year, so he'll be going
wonderful
year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and
where's he at?
Boy Marrow or St. Mary Seminary in Cleveland. Boy Marrow is the college seminary, so he's I think going to his second theology.
Yeah, and you're both in Akron, right?
Yes.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Good. Ben talks about Akron all the time when we're in France.
I really did. Yeah.
Yeah. Also, Ben, this is totally off topic. Do you remember when we watched the Super Bowl?
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yes. I totally forgot about that. We stayed up until we were in Italy, and we stayed up until 6 a.m. to watch
I think it started at 2 in the morning or something crazy, or 2:30. Like the Super Bowl, I don't remember what. Maybe Super Bowl starts at like 6:30, so it just started at 12:30 in Italy.
Really early. All I remember is that it didn't end until 6 a.m.
Yeah.
We stayed up to watch the whole thing, and I think it was like, wasn't that was the Eagles Patriots, right?
Patriots Rams,
yeah, or something. Yeah. It was like 10-3 or something like that. It was just
the
most boring Super Bowl. I think
it was not boring. The Patriots won.
We just didn't drink too.
It was it was a rough. So we were in Italy for a week, which ended up being a disastrous trip because I got there, and you guys missed your flight.
That was our fault.
No one's pointing any blame. I'm just saying a flight was missed.
It was our fault.
I didn't even imply that anyone was at fault. I'm just saying a flight was missed. You're the one in saying this. Yeah. So a flight was missed. So I had time to kill. I remember I just went to the Colosseum because I'm a big fan of Roman history.
Mm.
And then the next day we toured the Vatican museums. Then we went down and we stayed at an insane former monastery.
Yes, in the mountains.
Yeah, in the mountains with no heat, and it was snowing outside.
We were also supposed to do virtual classes the entire week, but we had no Wi-Fi.
So I think I was the only one giving you guys classes.
Yes,
and then
you were.
and then we just couldn't stay in the monastery. We went to Pompeii, but the monastery was just too cold. There was no heat, and it was winter. And and then we ended up getting an Airbnb outside of Naples.
Mm-hmm.
And we watched the Super Bowl at
on the beach. Yeah. We didn't watch the Super Bowl on the beach, but the Airbnb was on the beach. It was actually a really nice Airbnb.
But it was like February, and no one wants to be in the water in February.
No.
Whenever you talk about your time in France, it seems like it was just a crazy like fever dream vacation school thing.
It really was. I mean, it really is. Like, honestly, I should probably do a podcast at some point in the future, maybe just even talking about France, because it really was two of the craziest years of my life, and I would never take them back. I loved the time that we had there. I was actually thinking about it the other day, because some people that I used to know that lived over there were reaching out to me about certain things. It was just really kind of fun to just reminisce on the whole trip. It really was a fantastic place, but you almost can look at it as just like it was a trip. Like, it pretty much really was just a trip.
Actually, even just today after graduation for this, so I'm at St. Paul's Parish in Cambridge, which is where I live, but I'm the undergraduate chaplain. But we also have a choir school. We have the only Catholic choir school in the country. So we have boys from 4th to 8th grade. It's a normal classical education, but they also do choir training. And their music is beautiful. But one of the parents just came up to me today and said, "We're interested in Siobhan. We'd like to meet with you and talk about that." And I was like, "Oh, wonderful. Love to share my thoughts."
I
loved it. Yeah.
I really did. I really like there are a lot of things you can say about certain things in your life. When something as crazy as what we experienced in Europe was as crazy as it was, you only look at it with positive thoughts. You know what I mean? Like I really don't regret anything about anything. Like I just remember being in Europe for 2 years and honestly having two of the best years of my entire life. Like it was.
Yeah. One of my biggest problem, like going back to seminary, was like, I knew I wanted to be a priest and I knew I should be a priest. And that was where God was calling me. But I was also like, maybe I could just stay in France. This is great. I'm having a great time.
Yeah. I love it.
I remember, the headmaster told me, he goes, you want to become a priest here. you can do it. And I was like, that's tempting. Yeah.
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 You could have became the chaplain at that school, which would have been crazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
One of the things I really did like about that school, and this kind of ties into our discussion, is because we had that community of like boys and men and all these different things, and you really did get this kind of sense that there were a lot of, maybe you didn't feel this, but I certainly did, was that there was a lot of vocations that were being formed. And it was just because the sense of Catholic community that was there. Like, we were going to mass. There was mass that was celebrated every single day of the week. It was a beautiful mass. A lot of the boys would oftentimes serve. There was a beautiful schola choir. Just really, like, the whole thing about it, like, it just exuded this beautiful sense of, I'm going to use a word, I'm not sure if it's real, Catholicity, right?
That's a real word.
It is. Okay, good. I just want to make sure.
Yeah, nicely done.
Father Nate's the one who taught me that word, by the way. So if I used it, I just want to make sure. But yeah, like this beautiful sense of Catholicity, which is one of those.
You used it again too. This is great.
It's great. It's really good.
You learned something.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. You really want to you find those things and you want to start bringing them everywhere else that you go. To this day, like living there, it almost seemed like you were in this kind of like secluded part of the world because you were in that deep sense of Catholicism. I haven't experienced that in the same way since, because now I'm in secular America and I have my secular job and everything like that. You as a priest, it's a little bit different because that's now your everyday life, right? For pretty much for the rest of your life. And you get to share that with all the kids that you teach, right?
Yeah. So so I did teach this last semester. So I taught at the seminary. Which was fun. And definitely vocations are being formed at the seminary because that's why they're there. But no, the Vendée was a special place. And if it felt secluded, it's because it was secluded. We were in a tiny little town with nothing, with one grocery store that was rarely open. But it was great. No, it is. And vocations have come out of that, out of that school. So that's a wonderful thing. But my role here is different. So my main job now is for the undergraduate population at Harvard, and we have vocations out of that too. So we have had a number recently enter seminary, and we have one entering this year, two who are ordained this year, Harvard graduates. So that's a big part of my role now, is to encourage that among the student population, and also to we've had a number of women enter religious life, which is beautiful. So that's part of the role.
That's awesome. So like when I think of Harvard, I think of like really two things. I think of the
Tell me what you think of.
The Social Network. Mark
okay.
Zuckerberg.
All right. Good.
And then just it's a very liberal university.
Okay. Good.
So being a priest there, in my head, it could be difficult. You're maybe not always liked, and you kind of have that little bit of animosity with some of the students there. But just from your experience, how is the Catholic culture there? Is it growing, persecuted, or kind of where is it at?
Yes. So because it's not a Catholic school, most of the students that I deal with are the ones who are seeking out the Catholic Center. We try to do a lot of outreach. We have focused missionaries here who are great. And there's a lot of outreach to different places, to different student groups. But I don't experience a lot of the insanity that might be around. I get some of it. But it is just sort of an experience of grace to be around these students. They're great, very devout. We get about 300 to 400 who come to Sunday Mass. We have I think we had 250 this year who came to at least one Bible study. We have, I would say, probably 100 to 150 sort of committed regular students. We do a lot of different events. We have talks every week. We do dinner after Sunday Mass. You bribe kids to go to Mass with free food. It always works. Yes, no, there are certainly issues with Harvard, but I've been nothing but just impressed with the Catholic student population. Because it is sort of an active choice to be involved with the Catholic Center here. It is definitely an alternative to what else is offered on campus. but that sense of an alternative is also a good thing. We had a number of students enter the church this year. At St. Paul's Parish, we had, I think it was 33 either baptized or received into the church at Easter this year, which was great. No, not all of those are Harvard students. Many are sort of locals in Cambridge. So for those of you who aren't in Boston, Boston is a very small city geographically, and all the surrounding cities, everyone just knows as Boston, but they're separate cities. And Cambridge is probably the most famous. It's just north of the city, and that is where Harvard and MIT are. So it's sort of the academic center, and most of the sort of life in this region is determined by these two universities. So it creates its own culture, which is for better or worse.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah, the one thing you said that I liked was because it's Harvard.
I only said one thing that you liked.
Out of that, you said of many things. The one thing that I'll choose to elaborate on is going to be you mentioned that they have to choose to kind of go to the Newman Center, be with you guys, which is awesome because a lot of times, like I grew up cradle Catholic, I was also homeschooled, so I was as sheltered as you possibly can be, and it was never my choice to be around Catholics or to go to Sunday school to do these things. It was something I always had to do. It was always an obligation. So I never had that time to like, all right, this is my faith. I want to do this because I want to grow my faith. It was, like I said, it was always obligation. And that choice is so important. And I'm guessing the people that do come to the Newman Center probably stay there longer than maybe other colleges they might be even Catholic, because it's the antithesis to what everything else is doing. It's against the culture, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, it's against the culture, but it also, I mean, Catholic culture is the richest culture. So it's not just sort of a negative alternative, it is the most positive alternative. And we want it to be full, right? So we strive to make the mass as beautiful as possible. We have a student choir, we do chant masses. We've been doing mass in with sort of polyphonic music, trying to get a number of servers. It also, we're blessed because we have the choir schools, so people can go to our 11 a.m. mass and hear the choir boys sing like Palestrina and all this beautiful music. And it really is the most sort of special place, I think, in America. And so you want to, yes, it is a choice and a choice against what else is going on, but you want to present it as this is everything, right? This can be, you will meet better friends here than you will meet elsewhere. You will meet, friends who will encourage you. You will have better social groups. You will encounter more beauty. You will, we do a number of talks. We have a wonderful, it's called the Harvard Catholic Forum, where we have a series of lectures meant for students. So you will meet beauty in real ways. You will meet truth in real ways. You will meet goodness in real ways. And that is sort of the idea that it's not just, I'm sick of Harvard, let me try this. It's no, this is the best thing possible. And we're presenting it to you because this is what the human soul needs.
Absolutely. One thing that we're really experiencing here in Northeast Ohio, and I don't know if it's just because we started this podcast and we're starting to see it a little bit more just because we're in it more, but there really does seem like there's this kind of this big movement of people that are just they're tired of not having community, and they're striving to find that community. So like here in Northeast Ohio, maybe it's the same over there. Boston's a much bigger place than where we are. There are all these different little small groups that are popping up everywhere, like small Catholic groups that are being started, young adult groups and everything like that. Way more than what was here when, I originally moved here or when Mike originally moved here. Just they're popping up everywhere. And I think it's like this big not anti movement against anything. Like you said, it's like moving from a positive to like a much larger positive, right? Like people had something before, but they want something that's much greater. In the sense of nowadays, it's social media, right? Social media gives you this small promise of giving you, like, you're going to go on social media and you're going to find exactly what you want because the algorithm is going to tailor your taste to you, right? But what it actually ends up doing
it's why all my videos are of dogs and golf. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. But what it actually ends up doing is like it actually completely isolates you from the rest of the world, right? Where people just start feeling like they're isolated, they're alone. now you have this big loneliness epidemic that's happening across the whole country.
Yeah.
What we're doing with all these different groups, it really seems like it like Mike said, it's the antithesis of what those kind of social modern norms wanted to do, right? In a sense, you actually ran a social media. I know you were running the Boston Seminary social media for a little while, right?
Yeah, that was a COVID project. We were trying to put out a bunch of stuff.
Okay. Is it still going? Do you know, or
I don't know.
That's fair.
Yeah. Maybe another seminarian does it. I'm not up to date on most social media things. I think it's still going on, but I don't really know. I'm sorry.
Well, you did point out when I told you about the podcast, you told me that you were going to plug your podcast, which I know was kind of that the music one that you kind of go on with. I think the other host, whose name is Paul Rose. Is that correct?
Yes. Yes. I have 2 podcasts. This is just me plugging to all the people in Northeast Ohio and around the world who are watching you right now. So I'm on Sing the Hours, which is a Liturgy the Hours podcast where we just sing morning and evening prayer every day, and people join from around the world. I think right now we have our latest stats. We had 42 countries join us last month. Wow. And we're averaging, I think, around 150,000 people a week. And we're just singing morning and evening prayer. And so you should check that out. Most, 95%, 99% of the work is done by Paul Rose, who's a young adult in Boston. And I just sing the priest parts in a number of episodes. And then the other one we do is Chants and Rants, where it's the 2 of us and we're explaining the liturgy in different aspects. So I think we just have a recent 4-part series put out on sort of why do we use Latin, but we've done other things about like beginning to sing, things like that. So both Chants and Rants and Sing the Hours, you can find them on the YouTubes.
Yeah, we'll definitely link those too.
Yeah, we'll get the links from you. We'll put them in.
Wow, thank you. Yeah.
For free too, no charge. So.
Wow, good.
Yeah. Very credible.
No. Yeah. But that's awesome. Those are the types of things. I know there's a C.S. Lewis quote that I'm going to paraphrase because I don't know the actual quote, but I remember him saying something like, "We don't need more Christian authors. We need more good Christian authors." And obviously, to a certain extent, there's a good point that's being made there. But at the same time, it's also, you do just need more Christians out there, right? You need to just basically not shove crap out, but if you have a good Christian message, it's worth getting it out there, right? And especially something with like chanting, which is something that is kind of lost in the modern age. Like someone has to do it, right? Someone needs to bring that back into the regular conversations of normal people who are just scrolling on YouTube, and all of a sudden they see, oh, the Chants and Rants. This seems kind of interesting. Let me click on this and watch it.
But it's also, this is your culture, right? This is who you are as Catholics. Every document from the church, every sort of instruction on singing says chant has pride of place, and it is pride of place because it is beautiful and it elevates the mind to God, and these things should be encouraged. And yes, but this is also like we all have different things that we need to be and different ministries, different gifts in promoting authentic Catholic culture, whether that's music, art, preaching, podcasting, all these sorts of things. And so, I think our mission with Chant right now is going well, but it's just one small thing that we all need to be pursuing. I think, we're all going to think our thing is the most important, but parishes should be chanting and chanting well. And this is our culture. This is our history. This is our liturgy. This is what the church says is the most beautiful art in the history of the world. And this should be promoted.
We should learn some chant.
We should. Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah. You could do a podcast where you learn to chant. That would be a big hit.
That would be something.
Well, we should do a podcast with Paul, and then have him teach us how to chant on a podcast.
Yeah.
Ooh, this is 2024. I was about to say 2021. This is 2024 Catholic social media.
That's great. That'd be so funny. But as you mentioned that C.S. Lewis quote, I'm going to use this time to plug what the other things I'm doing. We're actually using that quote into So we're Brian and I are actually trying to start a company called Scroll, and what it is it helps people who want to show like their Christian faith and just the culture, but they might not know how to edit videos, record videos, kind of the hard like little intricacies. And what we're going to do is we're going to help them produce it and publish it for them to get their voices out there, just because we need more Christian content out there, Catholic content out there, because like it's been said, everyone's just scrolling and the devil's always just throwing garbage out there, and that's what people are consuming. So we need to do a better job of getting more content out there, more Christian content out there. So yeah, we have Scroll that's hopefully going to be it's made. We're hopefully going to launch that end of the summer into the fall, and then I'm also during this journey.
Did you remove the vowels? Did you remove the vowels to make it a real tech company? Just SCRLL, Scroll.
Yeah, called State of Ohio. We need to change it, Brian.
Yeah.
But
or SKRL,
yeah.
Scroll.
We should, honestly.
Hey, that would make it more like, you know.
Or
more,
no, SQURL. It's like squirrel.
Yeah.
There you go.
And your logo could be a little squirrel.
Yeah. That's how everyone's minds are now.
This is all free material I'm giving you right now.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Now the free material that you gave, and then we're plugging your stuff, so it all evens out. God is good.
No, this is worth a lot more.
You're not wrong. No, that's beautiful. Like putting stuff on social media is so important, especially if you feel like you might be called to it, and it's a thing that we've been kind of discerning for a while. We've been doing this for almost a year now. We're going to become a year here shortly, and it's been absolutely fantastic. And the doors that it's opened, the communities we've been able to kind of be a part of, like Ben mentioned, there's a lot of little pop-up communities, and we've actually been able to get like one of the guests from each kind of group and kind of connect them with our podcast, which is really interesting. Almost everywhere I go, I see someone we've had on the podcast, and it's like really fun. I'm like, oh, they're on our podcast.
We're connecting Northeast Ohio. Now we've got the circuit. So
So when you go to Eaton Park, they're there.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
That's my Northeast Ohio reference. There's got to be an Eaton Park in Northeast Ohio, right? This was a bad
Brian saying no. He's a lifer.
Oh, dang it. What do you guys have that no one else does?
Pittsburgh, yeah. Pittsburgh, but it basically is. Right. So we're going to get someone real mad from PA.
Actually, we're doing a chant workshop in just north of Pittsburgh in 2 weeks. Next week.
Oh, really?
Where at?
Yeah, in Cranberry, Pennsylvania at the Thomas More Retreat Center.
Cranberry.
Okay. Yeah, you'll have to send me the details on that. Are you going to be there?
I am. It's full, though. There's no more space. But we're going to do another one in Cambridge in July, and people can come to that if you want to come see Cambridge. It's beautiful.
Maybe. I mean, what would you do if like someone just randomly showed up in Cranberry Township?
With mics and lights and a camera?
I'd kick you out.
That's fair. Yeah, that's fair.
That's a good answer.
Yeah. No, that's really good. No, I mean, like with all this being said, though, kind of bringing it back, all these different things, right? Like the problems that people are trying to address, maybe with what you address at Harvard in terms of community, the problems that tear those things away. For us, like a podcast, it's social media, right? It's bad social media that causes pretty much all the problems that we're trying to address specifically on this podcast, which is basically just creating Catholic content, right? On social media, there's so much content out there that is basically, I think in some sense, designed to take your attention away from the things that really matter in life. Now, obviously, to a certain extent, it doesn't really matter. Like, every now and then watching a golf video or watching a dog video, I'm targeting the two things that you said specifically. Those things,
They
don't really matter.
This is fine. This is fine.
They don't really matter as much. But the problem is that stuff is only going to grow continually, right? The amount of stuff that's out there like that. But if the Catholic content or the Catholic identity or the Catholic culture, community, whatever word you want to use, if it isn't growing at the same kind of percentage, someone is doing something wrong, right? And at the end of the day, that's kind of the thing that we're really trying to address with this. You mentioned those numbers at Harvard. Like, do you find that those numbers of people that are going to the mass, that are coming into the church, are those numbers growing, or do you think they're kind of like stagnant?
No, definitely growing. Now I'm just relying on the numbers I've been given. Again, I've only been here I began officially here. I started here on April 8th. So Yeah. Yeah. But in my 3 months here, boom, 2 months here, just
Yeah.
massive.
All of a sudden, yeah, Father
Also,
Nate shows
yeah,
up, and all of a sudden,
yeah,
boom, it's a new
yeah.
place.
Now, yeah. Then they all disappeared when the semester ended. And I don't know why that is. Maybe it's something I did. Yeah.
But you mentioned social media, Ben. I think we almost can blame Harvard for social media because social network, Mark Zuckerberg. So
You're
I mean,
welcome.
yeah. I mean,
God's gift to
we
humanity.
wouldn't have this medium,
Yeah.
which is absolutely crazy. But this has been fun.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah. Do you know what the difficult thing is about? This is a joke I heard. Do you know what the
Yeah.
difficult thing is about going to Harvard and doing CrossFit?
What?
You don't know it. You don't know which to tell people first.
You do CrossFit or you do Harvard or you went to Harvard.
That's
Yeah. It's very true. Yeah.
Yeah, CrossFit people are crazy.
Mm-hmm.
I did it for like a couple months, not even a couple weeks.
Yeah.
Not for me.
No, I want to go back to the podcast that the chanting one that you do with Chants and Rants, or the singing one that you kind of the two ones that you mentioned. Is that something that you think you're going to continue to do for a long time, or is it more of just like another like project right now?
Well, Sing the Hours is hopefully a long-term project. It's one of those things that can see an end date once we have all of the liturgies recorded. So right now we're just keeping up, trying to put everything out. But the Liturgy of the Hours is going to be changed. A new version is coming out, and so we're going to have to re-record all of the psalms, re-record all the propers. This is definitely a project for the next, I don't know, 5 to 10 years. Trying to keep up with it. I mean, and this is 99% Paul Rose's project, who's doing good work. And then the explaining the liturgy, Chants and Rants. Yeah, hopefully this continues for a while. I mean, it's just trying to pick out different things that people. This was just responding to a need of people asking us different questions about the Liturgy of the Hours and about liturgy. And so we decided to start a different podcast to explain different questions that people have. So that will hopefully continue for some time. But it's just one of, it's a priority, but it's like it's not a main priority. My main priorities are, I'm the chaplain here at Harvard. I'm the assistant at a parish. I teach at the seminary, and I'm trying to finish a doctorate. So the podcast is not my main mission, but it's an important thing, and I try to give time for it.
That's a lot on your plate. Doctorate from Harvard is
No, I'm not getting a doctorate from Harvard. I want to be clear. Yeah. I'm getting a doctorate at BC, which is way less impressive.
Hey, you gotta. It's all about confidence, right? As we said in the beginning.
Yeah. It's all about
confidence.
Exactly. Yeah.
But this has been absolutely fantastic. Really appreciate you coming out and giving us your time. What we also like our guests to do at the end of the podcast is give like a call to action or their final thought to the guest. And this is your opportunity to give that. This is a big deal. So
wow. What am I doing?
So call to action, final thought with the guest. So something you want to leave with.
Am I giving you a call to action?
No, this is something that would be it's like talking to our audience.
I can't tell Ben the things I wish he would do.
I mean, you can if you want.
All right. No, I think what you're doing is great. I encourage it. This is a good thing. I support this mostly, but I haven't seen it yet. We'll see. No. I mean, my shtick would be start singing. Start singing at Mass. Start singing when you do devotions together. Everything should be sung. Learn a bit of chant. This is a good thing. There are easy resources, and you will discover that the church's treasury of riches is meant for you, and so embrace it. That's my call to action. Yeah. Other things, other nice calls to actions. I don't know if any of you belong to any nice golf courses and you want to invite me out. Happy to play.
We have a lot of really nice golf courses here in Ohio, actually. I mean, if you're going to be in Cranberry Township, I don't know how much time you actually have, but that's only an hour and a half, I think, away from where we are, right?
Yeah, something about that.
Yeah, so I mean, if you want to come to Ohio, we'll take you to a nice golf course. I'm sure it's way better than whatever you guys have in Boston. Or I'm sorry, Boston.
That's terrible. That's such a bad accent.
I have no idea how you guys pronounce it. You guys have a weird accent.
Yeah, that you did New York.
Oh, I'm sorry. What is it? Is it Boston or something?
Yeah.
There you go. No, okay. So
Yeah.
that's true.
Good. That's my call to action. Good.
Yeah, if you ever come out here, yeah, we'll take you to Chippewa. We'll get you some Dunkin' Donuts. You feel like you're at home.
No, they have Dunkin' Donuts in Boston. That's
their thing.
Yeah.
Every street corner, right?
We do. We have the most donut shops per capita in America.
Is that true? That's a crazy.
Yes,
stat.
mainly because we have Dunkin' everywhere.
That's true,
it's almost like every corner.
I actually went to. We didn't say this on the podcast, but I actually did go to Boston with my dad to go see Father Nate's ordination mass.
Yes, yeah.
Beautiful, by the way. We also went to your first mass, which was, it was good. It was a good mass. I'm just kidding. It was a beautiful mass. But I remember
and everything was sung. Remember that?
Yes, everything was sung, which I thought was incredibly beautiful. But one of the things I was going to say was when we went to Boston, I was just absolutely astounded by the amount of donut shops that were everywhere. And it's not even a joke. They're literally everywhere.
Yeah, I think I probably have 3 within a mile of me. Maybe 4.
That's crazy.
Jeez. That's funny.
Yeah.
That's
definitely.
crazy.
No, I definitely have 4 Dunkins within a mile of me.
That's nuts. We got to go
good.
test that out one day.
Yeah.
But this has been awesome. And this has been the Just Like You and Me podcast. We'll see you next time.